Okay, tonight we're going to talk about protecting Windows. I sent out or an email was sent out about 4 o'clock this afternoon with the outline of what I'm going to talk about. And since this is a Windows 11 machine, and I know that several of you are still using Windows 10, I did send out a few screen grabs along with that document. So those of you who aren't using Windows 11 can have some sense of it's very similar. In fact, the all the options appear to be the same. Um, why do we need protection? And this is 2024. We've been talking about computer viruses for 35, 38 years, something like that. Um, but the, the viruses are but one of the words that is used to describe a larger category of things that can go wrong with your computer. And in general, they get called malware. Malware, malware. Um, the the malware is generally broken down into multiple subcategories. Viruses is only one of those, and frankly, we see fewer viruses now than we have for quite a while because there's less profit in viruses. Viruses typically were malicious in that they did damage, but typically they weren't particularly profitable. And now we see most of the malware that's being infected or sent out into the wild has the goal of making money for people who distribute it. And there are more profitable ways of infecting your computer in such a way that money can be made from it. Um, adware is one of those. We hear some about that. That is where advertisements are displayed on your screen in such a way that the people who are are presenting the ad can be compensated for that. Um, that is we don't see that quite as much as we have in the past. The more problematic malware that we see now is typically falls in the area of spyware, and that is where a nefarious user gains access to your computer in such a way that they can either gain access to your files so that they can look through your files and see maybe your bank statement or your tax returns or things like that, from which they can gain personal information, or they watch your keyboard and screen as you use your computer in such a way that they can capture your passwords as you're using online utilities, which may include bank accounts or um, investment software, whatever that may be. Those are the more those tend to be more profitable for people who are trying to do nefarious things on your computer. I will talk later in this presentation about another kind that generally is not protected by software. And I understand the general meeting last night was touched on these things as well. So it's really an appropriate time to speak about this. So I've given you sort of an overview of what you need to be concerned about with your computer, what you're protecting yourself from. Let's talk a little bit about um, the ways in which your computer can be attacked. I'll just use that word. Typically, the most common vector in this era is through the internet. Either you go to a place with your browser that causes problems to incur into your computer, or you're enticed to do something from the internet that will allow that in. Um, so the browser is a major vector of infections. Email is also a major vector for infections into your computer. There can be attachments that, when launched, can cause your computer to become infected. There can be programs that you're enticed to run or install, and those can also install different kinds of malware into your system. Secondarily, you can be infected across a network. Now, most people at home don't have to worry about this unless you've got kids or a spouse or something, and where you have multiple computers networked together. It is certainly possible for one computer on your network in your home to become infected, and that infection then spread across the network to other computers. So that is something to be aware of. I'm not sure I'd be concerned about it too much, in that software that infects across network is almost always looking for corporate people running Microsoft, the full version of Microsoft, not Microsoft Home and things like that. Another vector for infection into your computer would be devices. Thumb drives. I mean, there was a time when we talked about CDs and DVDs, but very few people use that kind of media anymore. But thumb drives are still fairly widely used for passing around data or moving data from one system to another. And thumb drives can become infected. So one of the things that you expect your anti-malware product to do is to protect thumb drives that are plugged into your system. And then, as I mentioned at the top, browser protection, and having your browser offer protection to your system is a key need for all computer users, be they Windows or otherwise. So I'm going to spend most of the time tonight talking about Microsoft Defender, variously called over the years Microsoft Defender and or Windows Defender. There at times were two different products, and I believe they're basically rolled into the same. They have the same interface, so they're basically the same product at this point. To talk about Defender, I need to go back and talk a bit about its history and frankly, its rather poor track record. And I say that right up front. When Defender was introduced in the early with Windows 8 in 2012, it was not even something you wanted to consider having on your computer. It interfered with other software. It did not protect you hardly from anything. It was poorly designed. It would cause your system to crash. There were lots and lots of reasons why no one wanted to use Defender. And it came with Windows 8, which wasn't very good either. So independent folks who monitor these kind of things, by 2013, a year after its introduction, they measured that Defender only protected you from about 78% of the known malware that was out there, which is not good at all. I mean, you would not want to trust your computer to something that was only 78% effective. By 2015, it was up to 97.5, which is getting better, but that still means that 2.5% of the infections out there would get right through Defender, when other products that were available at the time were consistently above 99%, very close to 100%. However, by 2023, which is the last time that Defender was given its full measurement, I'm citing a website called AV Test, which is an international site that tests dozens of major products. Defender was ranked at 99.7% effective. And that ranks them right up there with the best of the best. They're in the top 5 malware protection software. So they are very comparable to other products. Tom's Guide, which is one of the sources that I use for Windows information, said in 2023, it is now one of the best antivirus software solutions at detecting, blocking, and neutralizing malware. So that's a quote from Tom's guy. So Microsoft Defender comes bundled with Microsoft Windows. In fact, you have to go to quite a bit of effort if you want to turn it off. It is possible. You can disable it, and that is readily done. But by default, it is on. By default, it updates itself, keeps itself up to date. When you get Windows updates, that's just part of the Windows updates that you get is the Defender files are updated. As far as cost, it comes with Windows. If you've paid for Windows, or if Windows came with your computer, you've already paid for Defender. It's just part of the operating system. Oh, I skipped something I should probably go back and say. One of the reasons that Microsoft didn't even start even considering offering antivirus software, as it was then called, until 2012, 15 years after the first virus had hit, was they were losing the battle with their competitors in that Linux computers and Apple Macintosh computers almost never had viruses. They were so rare as to not even be an issue. And Microsoft was just flooded with viruses. They didn't want to address the issue because at the time it was thought it was just bad publicity. If Microsoft addressed the fact that Windows was very easily able to get viruses, then that could hurt their market share. But the problem was so bad by the early 2010s, and there were companies making antivirus software, profitably making the product, and viruses were still getting through. A brand new virus would come out, particularly as Microsoft released new versions of Windows. New viruses would come out, and it would take these companies a while to be able to resolve, to protect users from that new virus. And Microsoft realized they were uniquely positioned, since they wrote the operating system, and they could control the operating system. They were uniquely positioned to protect their own software assets. And so around 2013, they started doing that. The other issue was the antivirus software. The other companies that were making antivirus software were having to do all kinds of convoluted things to Windows itself in order for their software to be able to run, because it's possible to get a virus that infects the boot track of Windows, and then it's very difficult in that circumstance for a program that's running in Windows to eradicate a virus that runs before Windows even starts. And we saw a lot of that in the late 2000s and the early 2010s. And they're still out there, but the protections offered now by Defender and other products are much better at resolving those. All right, in my outline, if you're following along, I'm down into point 3, and I'm at, we talked about the cause, we talked about how you get it. Basically, if you have Windows, it's already there. There's nothing special you have to do. But let me show you about how you can make sure that your Defender is running in your system. So we're going to be spending a lot of time tonight in the settings screen. From settings, I'm going to, you know what, I did this earlier in 10. Now I'm just going to type it up here.
From the bottom, privacy and security.
Yeah, that is, I'm sure what it is, privacy and security. Thank you. And then Windows security. And there we are. So from this screen, we should be able to determine whether Defender is running. Now you'll notice on this screen the word Defender, I don't know, does it even appear there anywhere? I don't think it does. So they call it virus and threat protection, but you'll see that this green check is here and it's turned on and it says no action needed because Windows Defender is in fact running. So that is the way to check to make sure it is running for you. So unless someone has purposefully turned this off for you, if you were to go to this screen, it's going to be running. Now, it is possible if you've installed another virus software that software may have instructed you to turn it off, and if you follow their instructions, in fact, it might be turned off. It is possible for Defender to run alongside of other antivirus software. They can conflict, although I'll mention later, they get along much better with each other than they used to. And I'll talk about how to manage that later in this presentation. Let's talk about the different ways that Defender can be run. I'm actually going to close this down so I go back to the beginning, and I'm going to use the search tool here to search for security, Windows security. There it is. I'm ending up right back where I was. I just want to show you how to get there using the instructions I have on my page. I'm going to click on virus and threat protection. And you can see here, this computer was last scanned yesterday at 5:47 p.m. a quick scan. No threats were found. It took 1 minute and 6 seconds to scan, and there were 34,000 plus files scanned. So that is the quick scan. It is, 1 minute and a piece. That's not very long. If you have this laptop, I'm pretty sure has got an SSD in it, so that explains why it's so quick. If there were a hard drive, it'd probably be 4 to 8 minutes to do that same size scan, just because it takes longer to read the drive. So within Defender, and I'm going to continue to call it that, even though you don't see that name here on the screen, within Defender, there are 4 different kinds of scans that can be run. And to get to these, I'm going to click on Scan Options. And you see here the 4 options: a quick scan, a full scan, a custom scan, and I'm going to talk about an offline scan as well. Quick scan will be done automatically by Windows at a regular interval. If you have it activated, you will actually be notified in the bottom corner of your screen when it does it and that it was successful. You will certainly be notified if it finds anything that needs your attention. I've been using Defender for a couple of years, and I don't recall ever seeing a message from Defender within Windows telling me that it had found anything. But I practice pretty safe computing, so I'm not surprised that I haven't seen that. A full scan. There are times when a full scan is probably warranted. If you are, for some reason, having problems with your computer, running a full scan is probably not the first thing I would do, but it would be among the first five things I would do to my computer to see if maybe there's some virus that's hiding out in a place where a quick scan doesn't normally find it. So quick scans check the most likely files to be infected. It checks them quickly. It uses some. It's looking for signatures of viruses. The full scan reads more or less the entire file. It can take 10 or 15 minutes to run, or longer if you have a larger hard drive or external hard drives that need to be checked. It does a more thorough job of looking in places where viruses are not normally found, but could be found. And so for that reason, it does take quite a bit longer. And a normal person probably doesn't ever need to worry about a full scan. If you wanted to add it to your things that you do every once in a while, um, you could. It would not certainly doesn't hurt anything. It is more thorough, and it it might find something. But that is what the full scan is for. And it does it can find things that a quick scan does not find. I've never found that it found anything that the quick scan didn't find. A custom scan actually you might use occasionally, and there's a couple of reasons why you would want to use a custom scan. If you have if you do data sharing via an external hard drive or a USB thumb drive, or even a remote drive connected over the internet that shows up as a drive letter on your computer. These are all occasions where running a custom scan would be a good thing to have. I didn't thought about doing this. I think I have a thumb drive in my pocket, coincidentally. I was moving some data over the weekend. Kind of USB ports. It's not. Here we go. Let's see if this works. This is all. That is a. Yeah, that is a. Looks like a USB port. I don't want to go in. Oh, it's upside down yet. There. So I'm going to do a custom scan. Minimize this for a second. Custom scan. And it's asking me what to scan, and I'm going to choose it from the USB D drive. Select folder. And it's scanning. It was a thumb drive, so it didn't take very long. For 3 seconds, scanned 167 files, and it found no current threats. So that's how you do a custom scan on a thumb drive. Thumb drives are pretty quick. External hard drive might be longer, depending how big the drive is and how many files are on it. So that's how a custom scan works. And that's why you would want to use a custom scan. I'm going to eject that just so I don't forget to take it home with me. Right? And finally, let's talk about the Microsoft Defender offline scan. For those of you following along, I'm at 0.3.5.4. As you can read here from Microsoft, and I mentioned this earlier that some of the alternative products to Microsoft Defender would have difficulty detecting and removing a virus that had infected the boot track of the computer, the boot tracks of the hard drive. This is most often what the offline scan is done for. They warn you right up front, even on a fast computer, this could take 15 minutes. And it will have to reboot your computer in the middle at least once, and I think twice. But it is scanning differently than the full scan. The full scan checks all of your files that Windows can get to. The offline scan installs a little, for lack of a better description, a little version of Windows temporarily on your hard drive. It then reboots your hard drive to use that little temporary version of Windows. That's only function is to check the rest of your hard drive for viruses. It then runs through and checks the rest of your computer for viruses, including Windows itself, the parts of Windows that load before Windows even starts. It will check those files and clean those files if it finds a problem. And then it will run through that whole scan, and then it will point Windows so that it boots back into regular Windows and reboot again and let you know that it is finished and what it found. I've never, I probably should have looked at a video, found a video of someone out there on the internet who had run a full offline scan where it found something so you could get some idea of what it looked like. But again, if they're for a normal user, it's probably something you never need to do. But if you're having these really impossible to solve problems on your computer, and maybe you're even talking to a technician, they may advise you to go ahead and go in here and do this. And it takes 15 minutes and then it's done. And you have assurance that that wasn't what the problem is, presuming it doesn't find anything. Um, I have heard of probably 18 months ago uh, a a system where someone's browser was going to places that they weren't trying to go to. And it ended up being a Windows system file that was infected. And this was the only way to get rid of it. It was the secure sockets layer part of the network system that was infected. And this was the methodology necessary to remove it. It wasn't anybody I knew, I just heard of it. So that knowing that you have it, you'll probably never need it. Knowing that you have it might be some reassurance. And that is basically the all there is to Windows Defender. It runs there in Windows. It you're unless for some reason it has been disabled on your computer. If you're running Windows, it's already running. You probably don't even need to worry about it. Just let Windows do its thing, and it will continue to protect your system. And unless you're told by someone who's tracking down a problem to do something different, you can just keep going with that, and it will keep going. I mentioned at the top about using other antivirus products and other antivirus products that were out long before Defender was, even before Microsoft even admitted that there was a problem that needed to be solved. Malwarebytes is one of them. Avast, AVG, Norton Defender, and Symantec, and Norton Antivirus and Symantec. I probably 10 years ago was at it was either a CKCS general meeting, it might have even been a Windows SIG, where a system was demonstrated to me called ESET, ESET, out of Europe. They were, and that's been the product I've used since then. Their sort of claim to fame is they've always been in that top tier of top 5 antivirus protection software. But what made them special was if you had a machine if it's an older machine or a machine with fewer resources, less memory, it was much less, it used much less of your system resources than did a product like McAfee or Symantec, which I guess are now the same, or several of the other big boys, the names that are popular. They were known for gobbling up half of your available memory or taking a long time. They when you go to launch a program, you launch Microsoft Word, and why does it take 40 seconds for Microsoft Word to launch? Well, you find out it's the antivirus software that's pecking it every time it runs to make sure it doesn't have a virus, and therefore it's making it take 3 times longer than it should normally take. I never had any of those problems using ESET, and that's why I used it for so long. So Defender does work well with others in that you can choose to use a different antivirus product for whatever reason. Maybe you just don't like Microsoft. You'd rather use somebody else's product. you can use their other product. And in that situation, what you would want to do is you might at that point have Defender turned off. Um, I'm reading my notes here, 3.6.2 antivirus options. I'm not seeing that on here. Again, I looked at this earlier today on Windows 10. Um, let me do a search.
Which you might put that back on quick scan.
Oh, thank you. I don't think I took it off a quick scan, but well, I would when I left the screen. Thank you. Thank you. That is good. What I'm going to do is go back over here and go back into security and then search for, and there's no search on the screen. All right, I'll do it down here. I want to search for periodic scanning.
If you don't have any other antivirus loading, well, I mean, is that a reason that it might not show up in the?
That is possible. Yes, that is reasonable. I didn't expect to take it to here. Virus options. I never saw options. Did you all see options?
I don't think so.
Scan option.
Oh, here it is. Scan options. Oh, but I was already there. Periodic scanning. That's what I'm looking at.
At the bottom of that previous slide mentioned periodic scanning.
Right, but that was the browser.
The steps. This guide will teach you how to enable periodic scanning.
I don't have that toggle. I don't have that toggle. It shows up right down here, unless it's this, but that's.
So is it because that computer doesn't have another?
That is entirely possible. I hadn't considered that possibility that Microsoft in a later version might have chosen to make it not possible to run periodic scanning if you don't have another virus scanner installed. I had not considered that possibility. In Windows 10, you could do it. So I apologize, but if you do have hopefully, if you've got another virus piece of software installed at the bottom of that previous screen that we were on, down here, it will give the option to turn on periodic scanning. And the idea of periodic scanning is rather than being running constantly in the background, assuming you have McAfee or some other product running constantly, you can then still run Defender periodically. You run it once a month on the third Thursday of the month. You run it at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and it will, in fact, go ahead and run Defender. It'll do whatever it needs to do to mute the other product that you're running. It'll run Defender, and then Defender will end, and it will probably doesn't turn it off, but it will unmute the other software. And that's not a bad methodology. No one single solution can catch every single possible problem out there. And running Defender, if you're running another piece of software, running Defender as your second line of defense is probably not a bad idea. That certainly doesn't hurt anything other than the processing time that your computer will take. So I spent a lot of time sort of advocating for Defender. I've done a lot of research over the last several weeks, and frankly, I'm convinced, and I'll talk about more of that in a few minutes. But I do want to take a moment to, I would not be fair to not point out um, any of the reasons why you might not want to use Microsoft Defender. And I've enumerated those in section 3.7. Microsoft Defender definitely works better with Microsoft products. And that's not to say it because Windows itself is a Microsoft product. That's not to say if you're using an Adobe product that you're not being protected by Defender, because Windows as the operating system is being protected. But the product is definitely tuned to work best with Microsoft products. And I've got Chrome mentioned there, and this is where I need to make a pretty bold statement that Microsoft Defender primarily protects browsers that are Microsoft's browsers, which at this point in time is Edge. Browsers require significantly more protection than just a regular program running under Windows. A regular program running under Windows, if the virus isn't already there, and if it doesn't connect to the internet to get data from the internet, then there's very little chance of that program causing a virus to be caught, so to speak. A browser, on the other hand, is the primary vector whereby computers can be infected. And Windows Defender is primarily tuned to protect Windows and to protect Edge as a browser. Now, there are some things that it will definitely protect, even if you're using Chrome or Firefox or Safari or any other browsers that are in Windows. It will protect those things. If you download a file, as that file is written to the downloads directory, it will be scanned as it's downloaded, and if a virus is detected, it will be immediately flagged by Defender. But if your browser was protected, you would potentially be informed before you started downloading the file that it was a potential carrier of a virus. Now, having said all of that, all of the major browsers out there include browser virus detection within them. Chrome, Firefox, Safari, etc. They are constantly watching for these things. And my experience has been Chrome blocks things that Edge allows you to get to, which is still running. I mean, Chrome and Edge are almost built on they are built on the same engine, and they're very similar products. But Google's analytics seem to be much more likely to find and detect and prevent you from going to, or attempting to prevent you from going to nefarious websites than what Microsoft has for Edge. So, but that's still not a reason not to use Defender, because if you're using Chrome is protected, and Windows itself is still protected. But you do need to be aware that Microsoft is most concerned about protecting Edge as a browser. Some of the other antivirus software is packaged with other ways of protecting your computer in addition to antivirus. Defender lacks some of those add-ons that other products have. We were talking earlier about VPN, which can protect your computer from being spied on from the internet itself. So if you're at Panera and you're on your laptop it is possible, if you're not running a VPN, for what you are doing with your browser across their open internet to be observed. I don't want to alarm you, because thankfully almost every website out there is now using what's called SSL, secure socket layer, which is a way of encrypting your data as it leaves your computer, as it travels across the network of Panera, the Wi-Fi of Panera. It's encrypted and it's decrypted at the other side in the other computer. So, going to your bank, or even going to Chrome, going to Google as a search engine, even that data is protected across the network. A VPN adds another layer of encryption and protection to that. And if for some reason you needed to mask who you were or where you were, a VPN also accomplishes that. But Defender doesn't really need a VPN. That's not its function. And if you need a VPN, you probably should get a VPN, virtual private network, from another source. Parental controls. There are parental controls in Windows. It's not specifically part of Defender, but if your grandkids are on your computer and you just want to keep track of what they're doing or make sure they stay away from places they shouldn't be, you can turn on parental controls. But they pretty much only work with Edge if you have Windows. You'll need a third-party product if you want to do family controls on other browsers. And Microsoft also offers another product within Windows called Family Safety, which protects, again, it's a Windows add-in that can prevent grandkids or kids from installing games that are rated beyond what you want them to have, visiting websites that you would prefer they not visit, and you can even go in there and you can set up the criteria for which you want to allow or disallow access. But Microsoft makes that product available for an added fee. There are other virus protection software, total virus control, if you will, products that include that feature as part of their paid suite that they offer as well. So I skipped one. I want to go back to it. Number 3.7.2, phishing, spelled with a PH. Phishing protection is limited with Microsoft Defender. And I assume that I was not at last night's general meeting, but I assume that's part of what he spoke about, was a little bit. So let me go into that a little bit. Phishing is a way that it's a method of social engineering to get you to do something that will end up with someone else having your money in most cases. Occasionally it's information, but usually it's money. It's almost always financially motivated. Even if they're getting other information, the other information they get is in order to get money. And the phishing, it's a new term for something that's been around for years. We had phishing before we had computers. We had, you hear about the people who call you on the phone and they're trying to get you to invest in a timeshare in someplace. In a roundabout way, that's a way of phishing. They're trying to sell you something. I'm not saying all timeshares are bad, but they're trying to sell you something that may or may not be what they're representing it to be. Computer phishing is the same social engineering. They're trying to interact with you in such a way to get you to give them information that will lead them to getting your financial resources. Phishing is what they're trying to do. They're trying to hook you. They're trying to make you believe that they are something or they are not, to gain your trust, to get you to give them access or money or whatever. And preventing phishing from happening is really beyond the capability of an antivirus software. Because it's social engineering. It's over email, it's over text, it's over phone. These are things that you normally do with your computer that as you fall for them, hopefully you will never will, but if you were to fall for them, it's not something that it's easy for software to detect as happening. Because it's the same kind of the conversations you might have with someone who's phishing might be the exact same conversations that you might quite legitimately have with your daughter or grandchild or brother-in-law. I need you to send me $50 for this thing I need. Well, if that's your daughter-in-law, then that's normal. That's not an unusual, well, might be unusual, but anyway, it's not anything the software can flag. So while Defender does not offer any phishing protection per se, it really shouldn't be expected to. It's not, it's outside the expectation of what antivirus software should normally do. Now, having said that, one of the vectors for phishing attacks is spam. And again, it's not antiviruses. An antivirus program will protect you against email that have spam within them. Some of the antivirus products will scan your emails as they come in. They're always scanning your emails as they come in if you download them to protect you against attached files that would have viruses or malware within them. But as far as reading the text of the email to try to detect whether it's a spam email, that's more a function of your email service. That's a Microsoft Outlook or Outlook Online feature or a Gmail feature or a Hotmail feature rather than the antivirus software, the Defender. So again, like the browser protection, you do need that, but you should normally expect to receive it from another from your email provider, not from the antivirus software. If purely you're trying to block spam, which is one of the vectors for phishing to happen. So I did want to cover that. It's sort of an aside, but I did want to make sure you're aware of it. And I'll offer what my best advice I can offer you is if you're getting an email or a text or a phone call, if you feel this little alarm going off in the back of your head right before you're getting ready to give them your social security number, your bank number, any kind of anything, the best solution for that is just hang up, disconnect, delete the message, stop it. And if for some reason you think it's legitimate, like they're saying that they're your nephew that you haven't heard from in 20 years, call your sister to make sure that you're actually talking to your nephew rather than continuing that conversation with someone who may or may not be who they claim to be. Verify independently. Don't call the phone number that they told you to call. Call a phone number that's already in your address book to try and reach the person that they're wanting you to reach. I'll just mention as an aside, probably every 6 weeks, our church needs to send out to the several hundred people that attend some sort of message saying someone is emulating one of the church staff. They're not asking for donations. This person is reported being in the hospital is not in the hospital. They don't need your money. Church people tend to be very trusting, and so keeping this reminder in front of us is important. So that's pretty much my presentation. I do want to take item number 4 is personal conclusions. I mentioned earlier in my presentation that I have been a paying user of ESET, ESET software for over 10 years, probably 13, 14 years. I have it installed on all my computers at home, on my laptops. I buy a subscription that covers like 6 computers. So they're all in there. My kids have it on their computers because they're on my network. Through the research that I've done over the last couple of weeks, I'm not going to renew. I mean, Asset is a very fine program, and I do find that it's monitoring my browser, for example, and it does pop up every once in a while, and it comes up and says, "We don't think this site is where you ought to be. We think you should think twice." But I'm doing a Google search on some deep problem that I can't find any information on, so I follow this site that looks like it might be legit, but it's in Russia or it's but the text looks pretty good. I click it and immediately a set pops up and says, "No, we don't think you should go there. This has been reported as being a problem set." ESET. And I buy like a 3-year subscription for $150. So $50 a year covers 4 or 6 computers or something like that. So it's a fine product. And the reason I started using it is because it did not use a lot of computer resources. So my one daughter had an older laptop at the time that was really slowed, and it really didn't slow her down much at all. She didn't notice that it was slower after I installed it. But Defender's already there. By the time we get to Windows 10, the product appears to be pretty mature. Defender on Windows 10 and Windows 11 appear to be identical. It's the same files that they're looking for the bad stuff. So my personal conclusion is that when Asset comes up for renewal at the end of this calendar year, that's when the end of my 3-year cycle, I'm just not going to renew. I mean, I just don't see all my computers are running Windows 10 or above. They've all got, they're already running Defender. I'm running Defender and Asset both at the same time. So I don't see any reason to do that.
You have a question from Jerry Heaton.
Hey, Jerry, glad to hear from you. Let me pull up the chat. Where's the chat? Where's the chat? Am I missing?
Over to your left.
To your left.
To my left. My left.
There you go.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, it does. All right. Oh, let's make this bigger so I can read the whole thing. We have Malwarebytes, and when you go to went to the virus and threat protection, it listed Malwarebytes is turned on. Okay, that's good. Oh, then said you can keep using your current provider and have Microsoft Defender. Okay, there you go. So Jerry has proven our theory that if you have another software antivirus software protection installed, Microsoft Windows will figure that out, and then it gives you a switch to turn on periodic scanning. Yes, that is a good idea to turn it on. It won't hurt anything. Tell it to scan, at a time that you're not using your computer, but it's likely turned on. Monday mornings at, I don't know, when you go to get coffee or something, and have it do that scan. It won't hurt anything, and it certainly could help. It might find something that Malwarebytes missed, and that never hurts. So, yes. Other questions? You can unmute yourself and ask the questions out loud, or you can type them into the chat if you want to. Or you can ask them here. I've got 5 or 6 people here. We can take questions here if you've got any. Or we can be done.
Like I had a question, but I lost it.
I heard someone start to talk. Go ahead and speak up. Jan, did you have a question?
Yeah, you mentioned safe computing. Can you give us some tips? You said you always practice safe computing. Is there anything different than we've heard over and over, or?
Even as I mentioned safe computing tonight, I've also mentioned several details about it, but I don't mind at all. The probably the biggest one is don't open an attachment on an email unless you're 100% sure that you're expecting the attachment and it's exactly from the email it's from the person you're expecting it from. That that is probably the easiest vector for someone to, you get an email, and maybe it's even the person's name that shows up in your email, not their email address, but the name that shows up is a name you recognize. Maybe it's my name. And you say, and the text says something like, look at this great picture, or something just short, sweet that entices you, or I found this old picture of when we were together. Something that's going to make you click it. And maybe it looks like it's a PDF that's attached, and you click it. It's difficult, but there are possible. You open the PDF, and then there's a picture there. I've never opened it. And then it says, for more pictures, click here. Well, you click here, it takes you to a website, and then you're infected. And that's possible. That's common even. Or you get an email that says, look at this I found the best tax software out there. It'll save you tons of money. Install this product and it'll just work. And in fact, it might be a tax software, but you have to enter your social security number and your tax ID number, and then they've got everything they need, don't they? So, that's probably the safe computing. There were, for years, one of the things was people would leave thumb drives laying around, and you install the thumb drive and you plug the thumb drive in your machine, and all of a sudden you have a virus because the virus is on the thumb drive. That's not doing that would be practicing safe computing. Installing software from a source that you don't recognize would be a pretty easy way to get. And I'm at the point now, even if it's a piece of software that I know and I'm familiar with and I need to install, you have to be very careful where you install it from, because the first link in Google might not be the official link for that piece of software. It's a free utility that you need to take the red eye out of pictures. Well, the first one on the screen might not be the one you think it is, even though it might be labeled as such. So I always type in by hand rather than following a link. I type in by hand adobe.com and then go to the website and then get it from there. That's another way of practicing safe computing. Don't just blindly follow links the link might say it's adobe.com, but when you click it, it's actually taking you to adobo.com.ru. And it looks like it's the same website, but it's not really. So those are all things that you can do to practice safe computing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good question. So last month, I asked at the end of the meeting for people to send me ideas for future meetings. And I had 2 different people send me 3 different ideas. And I thank you for that. So I'm now covered for this month and next month and the following month. But that means I have months yet to come that I would be very happy to have ideas for the meeting. And I'm told by a very reliable source that one of the most difficult parts of the job of being this SIG leader is finding interesting topics that you have questions about, and that I can do research on, I can make a presentation on, but that you will find of interest. So again, I encourage you, continue to send those ideas. I'm happy to do the research for you, make a presentation and do an outline, and you'll have a handout. But the ideas are the hard part. And I'd rather do something that you're interested in than me pick something that I might be the only person that cares about it. So keep those ideas coming, Windows related. which covers quite a gamut. But that's what I'm looking for. Any other questions?
Paul, Mr. Chair,
Yes, sure.
one more question. At your recommendation, I did turn that on and it did an immediate scan, said I had no problems, but apparently it's going to work in addition to Malwarebytes. Now, my question is, I have a pro version of Malwarebytes and I don't have to renew it, but they keep wanting me to buy the new version. And is that necessary to keep? What would you do?
Oh, yes, it is very important. And this is a great question. It's very important to keep your subscription has to stay current. Now, it may be that the only way to get the latest subscription is to get the latest version. But you should be getting every month, you should be getting an update to what I mentioned earlier that the way Defender works is that it looks for signatures of viruses. So it can quickly scan a file. It's looking for these 7 characters that typically only appear in this virus signature, in this virus file. If you're not keeping your antivirus software, your subscription for your antivirus software up to date, meaning once a month or more frequently, downloading the new, they even call them signature files, then your antivirus software is only as effective as the date that you last downloaded your signature files. So if it's been 6 months since you downloaded your signature files, that means you're not protected from any viruses that have been, or malware that have been introduced since that time.
Question
So,
two, then. Question two.
go ahead.
Then, is that really just, I always looked at that as a scanner that looked for things that the normal Defender does not look for. Is it not that, or do I really need to have that on there at all?
You remember at the very beginning, I mentioned that Microsoft Defender has been rated 99.7%. It finds 99.7% of the known viruses at the time that it was tested. My guess is that Malwarebytes, which I think is what you said you're using, has a very similar number, 99.6, 99.8, something like that. The difference is the ones that Microsoft lets through are almost certainly going to be caught by Malwarebytes and vice versa. The chances of them both not having the same, the 0.2% of them both being the same virus is pretty small because they're independently looking for these things. It's not like they're all using the same library and finding the same things. Each of the major companies are finding them themselves. They have their own research team. So that is a reason. And having said all that, let's go back to the practicing safe computing question for a minute. The best protection from viruses or malware in general is a really good backup. Because let's say the virus is destructively nefarious and it attacks your computer and it just deletes everything on your hard drive. Now that we haven't seen viruses like that forever, but there were at one time viruses that would do that. Let's just say, for example, that's what it does. No amount of virus protection software, if that virus got through, there's no amount of virus protection that's going to solve that problem. The only thing that's going to solve that problem is a backup. Having your data backed up. And frankly, having it backed up more than one place and frankly, testing your backups. If you've got, a good backup, you want 2 backups. You want a backup on a hard drive that's not connected to your computer. That way, if your computer's infected, it can't be deleted. But then another backup in the cloud. So if there's an earthquake or fire or flood, that that drive that you have, that external drive could be destroyed, and you still can't. You need your tax. You're being audited. You need last year's taxes. Well, you still want to be able to get to those. Having it backed up in the cloud allows you to buy a brand new computer and restore your backup from the cloud, and you've got all your data back. And whether that's OneDrive or Dropbox or Google Drive or a backup service. I happen to use Backblaze for $100 a year, and my computer's backed up. I mean, if my computer died tonight, I could get the important data I needed tomorrow, and Backblaze is one of their solution for when you have lots of data is they will mail you a hard drive. And so in about 4 to 6 days, they'll FedEx me a hard drive that's my backup, and I can just copy it back to my computer. I can just keep going. So,
Is that a cloud service?
it is a cloud service.
It's Back-
Backblaze, Backblaze, and there are ones that are less expensive. I like Backblaze because there's no limit to the amount of data I can send it. If it's on my computer, and I have a phenomenal amount of data, just terabytes, dozens of terabytes. I have over 100 terabytes of space. It's not all full yet. So yes, and they back it all up. It's all backed up.
How much does it run a year?
$99 a year. It may be like 1 of 4 now or something like that, but it's right around $100 a year.
It's called Backblade.
Yeah, Backblaze, Blaze. Let me bring it up in the browser, and I'll tell you what. And you all brought this up. I didn't. So, if you sign up for it, if you use my name, I get a free month. And I think
Blaze, okay.
so. Backblaze. The other thing they're sort of known for is because they use so many hard drives. They're like using tens of thousands of hard drives. They do an annual hard drive evaluation. So they have, because they're using thousands of hard drives, they can evaluate hard drives over a lot of drives over a long period of time to see like what's the best drive to buy and which models to stay away from. And that's sort of handy to know. But anyway, yeah, if you sign up and give them my name, then I get a free month.
Well,
Or
what
they'll
about
extend
Carbonite?
Carbonite, for an average user, Carbonate's fine.
Okay.
If all you've got are like your Word files and your files on your local computer, Carbonite does a fine job.
About 20,000 grandchildren pictures.
Well, so for grandchildren pictures, consider, is it Google that gives you free picture storage, right? I think.
Yeah, Google does to a certain degree.
Well, it's each image is limited to a certain resolution, but I think at one time it was unlimited number of images. Now they may have backed off that, but so
Okay. Thank you.
All the pictures,
they don't care. Video, pictures,
music.
didn't care.
You can do a full backup.
Paul, that other product you mentioned, that was ESET, ESET, you said, right?
Right. But I also said, I mean, I don't mind at all pointing you to them, but I just have decided I don't need them anymore. And I use the NOD 32.
Okay. You mean because you're fully satisfied with Windows Defender?
As of this week. I mean, I was thinking about it last week, but I've sort of decided this week. A set is just not giving me any, that, 99.7 or whatever the magic number is good enough. So, but yeah, it's a fine product, and it's particularly good if you have marginal machines. If you got older machines or machines that don't have a lot of memory, or if you don't want to be, if you don't want your machine slowed down by your antivirus. Norton Semantic is just known for just bogging down your computer.
McAfee used to be also.
Right. So, well, I think aren't they the same company now? Maybe not. Anyway, any other questions? All right. Well, it's been good to meet with you guys.